My name is Lane. I am an Ethereum core developer working on a project called eWASM. But I think without amazing applications, without amazing dApps, Ethereum will not succeed either. So I'm here to talk to you guys about applications today. Does anyone recognize this person or what this event is here? Anyone want to shout out a name? Come on, guys. American history. Thank you. This is Franklin Delano Roosevelt delivering what became the most famous State of the Union address in history, called the Four Freedoms speech. And yeah, I mean, the talk is called State of the dApps, so I thought we'd kind of have a little fun with it and just kind of channel some of that freedom energy here, because we're all about freedom. Whoa, that was like 10 slides. What is going on? Cool. I'll try not to do that again. So Wikipedia says, in the State of the Union address, the president traditionally outlines the administration's accomplishments over the previous year, as well as the agenda for the coming year in upbeat and optimistic terms. Ethereum does not have an administration, and I am most certainly not the president, but I thought it'd be fun to outline what's happened the past year in the application space and talk about what we should be focusing on. And I will do my best to be upbeat and optimistic about it. So funnily enough, I gave a very similar talk. It was actually one of the very first talks I did in November 2017 in Taiwan, reviewing kind of the state of dApp design at that point in time. Right? That's just over a year ago. So I thought it'd be fun to look back at what things were like then, and I'll show some of the slides I showed then and kind of fast forward to the present. And I also want to kick off by saying this is like one of my favorite topics and one of my very favorite things to talk about, because it gave me a great excuse to just like play around with all the amazing apps that have emerged over the past year that have been like on my list of things to play about and to try out. And as I was preparing for this talk, I was completely blown away, like honestly, by how far things have come and how much has emerged over the past year. So I spoke about how we have a lot of usability challenges in Ethereum, Web3 in general, so like key management, identity management, onboarding, et cetera. These are still problems, but we'll come back to this topic. We've made a lot of progress in the past year. I know the font here is a bit small. Don't worry about it. This is what all dApps looked like until quite recently. So this particular one is like block stack, registering a name, and everything was kind of text-based for a long time. This is one of the very first dApps with a UI that emerged on Ethereum called Swarm City. So again, these slides are from November 2017, and so things have kind of improved a bit since then. But at that point in time, still pretty basic stuff. This is OpenBazaar, which is built on Bitcoin, although I believe they've added Ethereum support recently. And it kind of, if you squint, it kind of looks like an app that people are familiar with, right? You have like kind of buttons and follow and message and stuff. But when you get to the step of paying and checking out, people get presented with scary-looking QR codes and Bitcoin addresses and this number here that doesn't make any sense with a bunch of zeros and stuff. So not a perfect experience. You also get a lot of this, right? So OpenBazaar is built on IPFS, which is not known for being the fastest. It is, of course, decentralized, which is amazing. So sometimes things would take like 30 seconds or more to load. And it may have improved a lot since then. This is sort of a Twitter clone called Leroy that was popular at that point in time. It's since been retired. But this is my favorite quote. I'm just going to read this here about dApps. I don't always spend $5 a day on Ethereum gas, but when I do, it's to play with a slow Twitter clone with no ads and no cool people to follow. So that kind of sums up where we were just over a year ago. So cool, yeah, I mean, it's 2019. Let's fast forward and see what things look like today. So this is one of my very favorite dApps. This is called Peepeth. Peepeth is also a Twitter clone, and it's kind of carrying the baton on from what Leroy was doing. It solves a lot of the issues that Leroy had. So in particular, you don't have to use any gas to make transactions. It's fully decentralized. It's built on IPFS. It's very fast and very responsive, and I urge you to check it out if you haven't. This is kind of what it looks like. So it uses MetaMask integration. There's no usernames or passwords. It just hooks into your Ethereum account, and you sign transactions to prove identity. But as you can see, you're not actually paying any Ether for gas when you use it. This is Oasis, which is a decentralized exchange from the Maker team. There's a number of decentralized exchanges that have really taken off this past year, and they're really quite usable. This is the tool, the Maker tool, that is used to wrap Ether and create collateralized debt positions and issue the DAI stablecoin. The Maker team has really, really proven themselves this past year with fantastic UI and just really amazing tools that create a lot of value. So definitely check that out. And you can already see how the sophistication is so much higher than it was previously. This is Foam, another one of my favorite dApps. And again, I was super glad to be able to play with it finally at preparing for this. So Foam is a decentralized proof of location and points of interest protocol. And this is live on mainnet. You can play with it. You can add points of interest. You can stake on them. You can challenge other people's points of interest and sort of correct things in the map in a totally decentralized fashion. Very, very, very usable. This is Veil, which was released by the Augur team recently. So as I'm sure most of you guys know, Augur is a, what is the word for it? It's like a decentralized betting marketplace. And you can take long and short positions here on particular topics like the outcome of elections and things like that. So again, super sophisticated, super easy to use, live on mainnet as of like 10 days ago or something. OK, thank you. Thank you for that. But it's built on top of Augur, right? I mean, it uses Augur protocol. Yeah, sweet. Of course, this crowd, please correct me if I get anything else wrong. It's amazing. This is SpankChain, pure research. Definitely check it out. I had to find a photo where everyone had their clothes on, and I think I did a good job. But jokes aside, SpankChain is like super usable, and every time I use it for research purposes, I'm super impressed. It really shows what's possible with decentralized applications, right? They have like state channels managing payments in the background. It doesn't require any gas payments or anything, but it's all built on Ethereum and it's all decentralized. This is Dharma, which is a lending protocol. So you can issue loans with it collateralized by on-chain assets like Ether. It offers some of the same functionality as what Maker does, but it's a much simpler experience, also live on mainnet. This is a dApp that's become one of my favorites recently. It's called Cent, C-E-N-T. Please check it out if you haven't. Cent, I think, has done a really superb job of delivering on this vision of like what social networks could look like in the future, where people are compensated for value they create. Again, you can stake on content here and collect rewards either for generating content or for upvoting content that becomes popular over time. Really, really great user experience as well. You may have noticed, right, all these cool dApps, like where are the mobile apps? What's going on with that? So just to put things in perspective, this is data from Ben Evans on the Andreessen Horowitz team. Mobile is completely eating the world. Okay? So I want to reemphasize that like those of us in this room and in wealthy countries and cities like San Francisco are actually some of the very few people in the world who are still engaging with the internet and with applications primarily on like laptops and desktop devices. We're in the minority, right? The world is like rapidly adopting mobile. So I think that we need to pay attention to that trend. So this is Swarm City on mobile. I showed you what it looked like before on desktop about a year ago. A number of apps now have made themselves available on mobile as like progressive web applications. It's a pretty smooth user experience, but still kind of basic. This is DDEX. So this is the most popular relayer decentralized exchange built on the 0x protocol. They have a very slick mobile app. Some of the other decentralized exchanges do as well. They're sort of partially decentralized. So I think that there's lessons here for what other dApps can do on mobile. OK, that's right. Yeah, they forked and they have the Hydra protocol now, I think it's called. This is IamToken, which is one of the most popular Ethereum wallet apps. And they actually spend a lot of time curating dApps. And they have, if you tap on the browser icon at the bottom, this whole collection of dApps that are like sort of integrated somewhat with the app and that are like compatible. But I just want to point out when you like tap on one and you want to go into one of these dApps, it's just like not a great user experience. You kind of have this like weird wall that pops up, and the integration is not seamless. And in particular, as I was doing the research for this presentation, I actually could not find a single dApp that like delivered a really seamless native mobile experience. So I think we have a very long way to go when it comes to mobile. This is Peepeth. Again, shout out to the Peepeth team. I showed you what it looked like on desktop a moment ago, Twitter clone. It's a very smooth user experience on mobile as well, but still running inside a wallet application, in this case, the Trust wallet. Cool. So that's a snapshot of the state of the art. Let's zoom out slightly and look at some of the exciting kind of UX trends that have emerged over the past year, which I think will have a big impact going forward. It's very hard to get an image of something as abstract as counterfactual instantiation. So this is The technology behind this is way beyond the scope of this presentation, but this is like literally the bleeding edge of what's happening in Web3 and Ethereum. Already today, or I should say in the near future, when Constantinople ships, knock on wood, we'll try it again, we're introducing a new opcode in Ethereum called Create2, which makes this possible. I mean, it's sort of possible today, but it's very expensive. And what counterfactual instantiation lets you do, it's a bit subtle, but it lets users transact and reason about contracts as if they were like deployed on the Ethereum network without actually having to deploy them, right? So I know that sounds a bit paradoxical, and it kind of is. It takes some time to get your head around it, but it's going to have a massive flow-through impact on user experience, and it makes it possible to kind of like reason about contracts the way that we can with regular accounts today. So kind of creating accounts, throwing accounts away, controlling multiple accounts, et cetera, and in particular, not having to like pay that upfront expensive gas cost to deploy contracts, and it makes things work in like state channels much more easily. The second important one is this concept of a meta transaction. So one of the biggest onboarding challenges is that in order to use Ethereum, you have to have Ether already in a wallet, and there's actually something like 17 or 19 steps that someone has to go through to onboard and go through the KYC process and buy Ether and put it in a wallet, et cetera, et cetera. So there's this application called a burner wallet, which we'll do a quick demo of at the end of my talk. It's just simpler that way, which demonstrates how easy it can be to onboard someone without them needing to have any gas or have an account set up or anything. Again, very, very, very important UX trend. So this is a gentleman named Austin Griffith who put this project together. You can actually go to xdai.io on your mobile device or on your desktop, but we'll come back to that at the end. And the third one is this idea called universal login from a gentleman named Alex Van de Sande, which further abstracts the concept of like an account. So you can actually create an Ethereum account and then link multiple devices to it. You can use it on mobile and desktop. You can have this sort of chain of custody where an account in one place can be used to restore access to an account in another place. These are the sorts of like UX primitives that are emerging, and again, very bleeding edge stuff. They haven't made their way into like mainstream production applications yet, but they will soon. So like keep your eyes on these three UX trends going forward. If we have time at the end, we can do a quick demo of that. So moving right along, so these are some of the exciting things that have emerged, but we still have a few missing pieces. So let's kind of own the fact that like there's still a lot of work to do. I think different people have different visions for what Ethereum or Web3 could be or should be. And my personal vision is not that we're trying to like replace all these applications. This is like obviously a random snapshot of like apps that many of us use on a daily basis. It's not that we're trying to replace them, but it's that for me, we're trying to like offer alternatives, right? So I think we need to admit that like today, as many cool things as have emerged already, we're still completely relying on totally centralized infrastructure from Apple and Google and Microsoft, et cetera, for very basic tasks like text messaging and email and note-taking, et cetera. And so I think that the Web3 promised land is like still very far over the horizon, and we have a lot of work to do to get there. And this is one of the main reasons, right? So Web3 should be giving us three primitives. If you go back to the very beginning and you watch talks with Gavin Wood and Vitalik sort of describing what Ethereum will be in the future, you hear about these three primitives, which are messaging, compute, and data storage. These are the three critical pieces that you need to build basic applications. So which pieces are working right now? Well, we don't have messaging yet. That's still a work in progress with protocols like the Whisper protocol and some new initiatives. Storage, not yet, right? We haven't solved some of the most basic issues like the data availability problem. We have a Swarm team working on this. We have Protocol Labs working on Filecoin, but we're not there yet. And compute, we do have, right? Ethereum gives us smart contracts, but it doesn't scale, and it's very expensive and very slow right now. So these are the challenges that we have, that dApp developers have before them right now. But I do think that teams like the Graph Protocol are helping a lot with pieces of this, like data. Three final thoughts in closing. It's helpful to zoom out and look at where we are and where we're going. So this is sort of the classic technology adoption S-curve that like every MBA or consultant or probably entrepreneur, anyone in Silicon Valley has seen. Where would you guys say we are today? Does anyone think we're like early majority or late majority yet? So when I gave this talk in November 2017, I indicated that we were probably here. We're like still in the early innovator phase. I think today we're like kind of here, right? We're like in early adopters, but we're definitely not in sort of majority yet. Most people still associate Ethereum with like scam in their mind, so we have a long way to go. But again, I want to be upbeat about this and optimistic. I actually think that that's a not insubstantial amount of progress for 1 year. I think it's actually remarkable how far we've come, and we are moving in the right direction and making steady progress. And so it's anyone's guess kind of how long it takes to like cross that next inflection point. So my takeaway from this is we're doing the right things as a community, and we're having this explosion of new ideas for scaling and new things at the application layer, and I think we should just keep on doing what we're doing, keep building. But I think it's also very, very helpful to ask ourselves this question, right? If we as engineers and visionaries tend to like locking ourselves in dark rooms and hammering out code and designs and things because it's cool or because it's sexy or because it's exciting, we need to balance, okay? On the one hand, executing on this beautiful vision that we have, this Web3 vision, but at the same time, learning the lessons from Lean Startup and Silicon Valley and having tight feedback loops with our customers and making sure that we're customer obsessed and making sure we're building things that solve real problems. This is a big challenge that we have, I think, and again, just bearing this in mind is helpful. And finally, final thought here, I find that like high-level narratives can help a lot. For me, explaining things to people in the broader world for marketing reasons, kind of tying things together. And I think a lot about layer 1, base layer Ethereum protocol. We have a layer 2, which is all these amazing protocols that have emerged. But I'm starting to think in terms of this layer 3. And sorry about that. And to me, layer 3 is sort of beautiful UI, UX experiences, apps like Balance. Balance is an Ethereum wallet, but it's a lot more, right? So Richard, the gentleman who's behind this project, and his team have come up with this beautiful vision, which they call open source banking or an open financial system, tying together a lot of the protocols that have made noise in this decentralized finance movement over the past year. And so this is one narrative that makes a lot of sense for me. And so I think, again, as builders, as investors going forward, we should be thinking about what other narratives at kind of layer 3 will make sense and resonate for people in the world. I want to close with a quote. So this comes from a piece that was released a few days ago called The Year in Ethereum. Highly recommend looking it up and checking it out. This is it in a nutshell for me. If your baseline is 2015 to 2016, you remember when Ethereum was still firmly an experiment with virtually no users, developer tools, or even applications. The contrast with 2018 is startling. There are real applications now live on mainnet that provide real utility to their users, even if those user bases remain small. The thing we believed could happen, which may have once seemed impossible, is starting to happen in bits and pieces. So yeah, this excites me. I think we're moving in the right direction, so let's keep going. Let's dive into a quick demo. I just want you guys to see kind of a cutting edge, like what's possible with some of these new UX trends. Can we kick off this video here? So again, this is a gentleman named Austin Griffith who has been working very hard on this, this burner wallet idea, which builds on multiple of the UX trends I talked about. I don't know if the audio is going to work, but I can try to narrate if it's not. So what he's explaining here is that if you go out to dinner with friends, you can take the equivalent of like cash with you, and you can like very quickly use this app and generate a link, right? So what's happening here is he's transferring Ether from his sort of MetaMask, like let's call it hot wallet, into a link that he's going to use to send to a friend, to send that friend some Ether to pay for, I think, a pizza is the example he's using here. So all he's doing is he's taking that link and he's pasting it in a browser here. Now watch how amazing this is. It's going to load. Claiming. So there was no gas. There's no MetaMask. There's no installation of a wallet. And this person now on the other side has received that Ether. So there, you can see the 50 cents just popped in. It's built on a new sidechain. What is it called? I think it's called XDAI Network or something from the POA team, which is a hard spoon of Ethereum that uses DAI as its native currency. And there's sort of this relayer thing going on in the background here, which receives the transaction and processes it and submits it to the network for the user. Yeah, I'm pretty much out of time, but I just wanted to show you a snapshot. Like, you can tell how bleeding edge this is. Wait until this starts flowing through into like mobile applications, and they become way more usable. Thank you guys so much.